My name is Kika Bradford. I am a social scientist and research associate at the Institute for Tourism and Recreation Research here at the University of Montana. And I'm going to be talking about how to use generative AI or artificial intelligence for Montana tourism. It's quite a big topic, so today I'm just going to give a brief overview of a few ways we can use and take advantage of this tool like for tourism and recreation in Montana. So I'm going to start by briefly talking about like why we're talking about this. Basically, what is generative AI, why ITRR has been addressing this topic in our own research and work. Then I'm going to address a little bit of the ethical and practical use that I've been seeing around. And then we're going to dive deeper a little bit into some examples of how to use that and like just harness data for the tourism industry. And we're going to open up for questions and answers at the end. So I'm hoping we're going to have like a lot of time for that because I know that this is a hot topic nowadays. Right. So for those who are not familiar, ITRR is the research arm for the tourism and recreation in Montana, and it was established in '87 at the University of Montana, Franke College of Forestry and Conservation. And we're funded by a portion of the revenues from the lodging facility use tax here in Montana. And we've been doing this for about like almost 40 years now. So why are we talking about Gen AI? We are constantly trying to understand how we can improve our own methods, how we can make things more efficient, and yet continue to provide reliable data and insights for the tourism and recreation data. And I believe, like personally, that Gen AI can be one of those tools, but it also brings a lot of challenges. So we've been exploring how to do that in an ethical and responsible way to provide this objective research for which we have been founded, and we are known to do that in the state. Okay, let's just keep on going. Generative AI, so what is this? Like there has been a lot of buzz around it in the past like couple of years since ChatGPT was created and was out like as what ChatGPT is nowadays. So basically it's a way that we can use in a very conversational way artificial intelligence to create content based on learned patterns. So the more we use ChatGPT, Copilot, Gemini, the more it learns about human knowledge and human ways of doing things, and the more it is trained to provide information to us in the form of texts, images, audios, or codes. This presentation is kind of like very interesting, like on my keyboard here. But anyway, so for Montana tourism, like how can we use generative AI? How can we use, like, for example, ChatGPT to understand a little bit more or increase our efficiency in providing whatever it is that you are providing? So there's use for the Montana tourism and recreation industries, like for strategic planning and reporting, for example. These types of tools can help us to draft destination stewardship plans, marketing plans, to write and refine policy briefs, and to make language accessible, like just to help people understand what we are trying to convey. It also helps the industry to understand the trends that are taking place in the world. So basically, like, search the internet in a very efficient way, like using prompts. So basically using us asking them to do something to identify these trends and summarize these trends into very digestible insights and reports. It also helps us to understand visitor sentiment and feedback. What is that they're saying? Like in, for example, websites like TripAdvisor, or like in Google or other sites where there's so many people publishing their feedback, their experience, their perceptions about the travel that they took to Montana. So how can we actually summarize that knowledge and compare that knowledge, for example, across years or across regions, to understand what's happening and how we can improve? So not only ChatGPT, but GenAI can also help us to provide ideas and creative support and brainstorm ways of and perceptions of different things, like basically to understand things that we're not seeing at once and just saying, okay, am I missing something, for example? Or like, for example, brainstorm campaign taglines, generate ideas for images, for as another example. Operational and efficiency support is probably one of the things that has been the most used for. So basically creating emails or reminders on the agenda, creating meeting notes, for example, rewriting long emails, and just making things a little bit more digestible. So these are just a few ways we can use generative AI to increase our reach and our efficiency in the industry. But as I mentioned before, there are some concerning and some very tricky ways that GenAI can be used for. So we got to make sure that we're doing this in a responsible way, in an ethical way as well. So, for example, we have noticed that GenAI can be biased because as it trains itself on the language and the knowledge that is out there, it makes us think like, who is producing that knowledge? What type of knowledge is it out there? Like, how can we understand like some structural biases and some things that are being reproduced through that generation of content? It's also known for hallucinate, and by hallucination, and that's a term that's been very associated with generative AI. Like, I mean, things that are not accurate. They just produce data that they think, and by they, like, it's basically the tools themselves, the softwares that we want to hear. Like, for example, there was once that I was going for a stakeholder meeting and I was trying to get the bias of the people that I was meeting to kind of prepare. And I wasn't finding the bio for this one person. So ChatGPT in that case, like that was a couple of years ago, basically created the bias out of nowhere using my own experiences and background. So when I read it, I was just like, whoa, this person is a climber and has been working for conservation for this many years. I was just, wow, this is such a big coincidence. But that was a lie. So that was one hallucination that ChatGPT created because it thought that I wanted to hear that. So we have to be very careful of the things that we use and that we adopt from not only ChatGPT but other generative AIs, because they all hallucinate. They produce like inaccurate facts and knowledge. Although they have been improving, they have been citing more things, they have been pointing to sources of information, but we always need to go to those sources and make sure they are using those correctly. Another big challenge is the social and environmental impacts. So I add just a little bit of the bias, but the environmental impacts are also a big source of concern for a lot of people with data centers that are being created for the production and being allowed to generate this type of information in such speed have been using a lot of water and increasing our footprint in the environment. And another big part is the impact on humanity in general. And that's a big thing because it has been proven, or at least it has, there's been research and evidence supporting the idea that this is impacting our critical thinking abilities. And that's because people are relying more and more on generative AI to produce language, emails, or information knowledge, and are losing their ability to do that themselves. And that's kind of concerning, especially like if we want to maintain the accuracy and all the ethical aspects of it, we need to be very much on top of the things that we're producing and be accountable to the things that we are putting out there using generative AI. But on the other hand, there's been an increase in productivity and efficiency by increasing the speed that we can have turnarounds on many different aspects of life, like producing like a complex email or a policy brief, asking generative AI to summarize and explain certain concepts that otherwise would be really challenging. And deeper insights, as I was mentioning before, sometimes we don't see a few of the connections that are out there. And ChatGPT and Copilot and Claude have been very helpful in suggesting other perspectives that we have missed. All right. What if it's my internet or just the place that I'm touching the screen that is taking a little bit to move from slide to slide? So how do we start? Like, how do we do it? So it all begins with a prompt. And the prompt is basically any input, any text or image or audio that you give to the tool that you're asking for, the generative AI. So you're writing, like, for example, usually it's very much connected with text, and like whatever you're asking them to do, like whatever question or whatever explanation you're asking help with, that's a prompt. And prompt engineering is basically creating better and improving the prompts that you generated yourself. So prompt engineering, so making good and very efficient prompts, is the key to having also very good results from the prompt that you're using on generative AI, whichever two you're using. So two things that I've found that have been working really well for me is, one is just be constantly iterating with the chatbot on itself. So you can create, for example, a really long prompt with all the details on it, or you can create like a very general prompt saying, for example, we're going to start summarizing this report that is attached. But before you summarize, let's break it into very like specific sections that I want you to address. And then like break it down into those specific steps is also helpful. So it's breaking down like those complex texts into multiple steps and helping the tool to provide the support that you need. And the second part that I've mentioned, but it's like we have to mention all the time, we really need to verify the sources, the facts, the knowledge that they are telling us and providing us after we prompt them. So for example, a few prompts over here. We want to tell the ChatGPT or the chatbot about the domain, basically the topic that we want to talk about. So like, for example, your Parks and Recreation Director designing a town park plan. So that's the domain, that's the context that we're providing. We're also giving them a persona saying, okay, you're going to act as director. And as expected, a director is probably someone who has a lot of experience within that topic. we can also exemplify what we are asking them to do. So for example, as the Parks and Recreation Director, we're going to propose a 150 word statement on an accident involving tourists and grizzly bears near Yellowstone National Park, for example. So, okay, we're including the domain, we're saying what we want the chatbot to do, providing an example, like in very much constrained, like 150 word statement. Now we're going to provide the audience. Who are we writing this statement for? So, or like for like a different type of prompting. For example, let's say we're writing the tourism marketing plan, and we're going to write this for the Chambers of Commerce of Montana. So it's not to anyone. This is what we want them to do. It's the audience, and therefore it knows that it's a language that should be anywhere in between, like a very practical language, but also with very reliable sources of information. We also need to provide the output. How do we want the chatbot to provide the information we're requesting? So for example, well, this one was supposed to be create a table with columns providing the age, gender, and income. And so what the chatbot will produce is this table with these columns. And then you can, of course, like depending on whatever you're needing, provide more details of that output. Or you can also ask, oh, provide this as a downloadable file, like for me to open it on Word or Google Docs or Excel spreadsheet, or maybe a PowerPoint presentation, things like that. And before we actually run it, it's actually a good idea to ask the chatbot, do you have any questions before we begin? Because they will tell you, like, whatever needs clarification. If you, for example, forgot to add a few information and requests on your prompt, it will probably prompt you to remember and to go deep into the details that it needs to create an effective output of that interaction. So now let's take a look at a few examples over here. I'm going to start with one of the browsers. So a lot of the chatbots are now developing browsers. So instead of navigating using the regular browsers like Google Chrome, for example, they are embedding basically the AI into the browser. So Perplexity is one of the generative AI tools out there, and it developed this browser called Comet. And I just interacted a little bit with that one to show you how we can use that and an analytical tool to pull out some information using the ITRR dashboard. So let's see if this is going to work.
All right, I'm over here.
Is it working now?
At the ITRR website,
yes.
And I'm interested in understanding how visitors expenditures took place in 2023 and 2024 using ITRR data. So I'm going to ask the assistant of Perplexity to take a look for me on the website. Let's see what's going to happen. Like right now, it's interesting to see that it's looking for it over here. And now we can see that in 2023, the number of visitors, the visitor estimate, that directly supported the economic activity in 2024. That's what it happened. And year-to-year comparison is comparing for me already what's happening within these 2 years. But let's see what it does, like with the breakdown of expenditures for region and sector. And then like it breaks it down for Glacier Country. And we can see here at the bottom the sources that it used. And it's really important for us to pay close attention to this because Gen AI is known to fabricate data, to hallucinate. That's what we call it.
All right. So yeah, I know it went really fast. The idea was not to actually understand the expenditures in those years. It was just to show a way that we can interact with generative AI and an analytical tool that is available for everyone to look for data on, in that case, at the ITRR dashboard. So another way that we can use Gen AI is, as I mentioned in the beginning, is to, for example, brainstorm some campaign ideas. So I used a combination of two different tools, ChatGPT and Copilot. They all have free versions and they all have paid versions. So what I wanted to do is to generate use the Copilot idea generation agent. So agent is just a way of using the chatbot in a more in a very deep way and integrating multiple sources of information. So, but I wanted to make sure that my prompt was really well done. So I went to ChatGPT first. So I included on this first column here my prompt. It was somewhat general, actually. So actually, I requested ChatGPT to help me create the prompt. So my prompt was here, hey, idea coach, this is what it's called on Copilot. I want you to help me create a campaign for attracting new visitors to Montana. The attached ITRR report explains a few barriers for first-time travelers. Based on this report, could you suggest 3 campaigns? Please write the title of the campaign, a brief description with 2 sentences of why the campaign should run, if there's a specific audience, and 2 taglines as a suggestion. So I'm not asking ChatGPT to actually run this. I'm asking it to improve the prompt so I can use it on Copilot. I could also use that like on ChatGPT on itself. I just was testing 2 different tools to show you. And this is the third column over here shows the upgraded prompt for Copilot. And we can like immediately see that it's better structured. And structure is easier to use. Sometimes it's easier to understand. Even on a machine, like an artificial intelligence, will be able to process your request in a more efficient way if you structured it correctly. So it didn't change much, but it changed it a little bit. It was more targeted. It was more directive to Copilot to basically create what I was asking for. So we can see over here the explanation, the target audience, if applicable, the tagline, and at the end, it included something that I had missed, the tone. Please keep the tone visitor friendly, inspiring, and aligned with Montana's travel brand. So that's super important. So with that, I uploaded the report to the Copilot agent, used the refined prompt, and ask it to just run the prompt on itself. And this is the ideas it created. I didn't include here every single part of the idea just because it was too much, but just so you guys to have an understanding of what we can do. So for example, one of the barriers was basically the idea that Montana is too far, too remote, and hard to get to. So this first one is addressing that perception and included the theme and the topic of the campaign over here at the top and 2 of the taglines over here at the bottom. It doesn't matter if we actually use this or not, but it's giving us ideas. It's brainstorming with us. It's our assistant, like it's almost like sitting on a room with other people and saying, hey, let's do this together. The other one was also like highlighting hidden gems and also different times of the year to defocus on winter and mainly summer. And here are the taglines. And the first one is just to keep emphasizing that Montana welcomes everyone and everyone belongs in Montana. So these are based on ITRR research. So that was what I asked it to do. So the last example that I want to bring to you guys is something that we've developed here at ITRR, which is a customized GPT. So basically we trained a chatbot to help us increase the effectiveness of our report writing. So basically we wanted to improve the consistencies among the reports and the different staff that is working at ITRR in different years, the themes, support faster turnarounds for stakeholders, and also help to integrate GenAI in an ethical and effectively way into our research workflow. The focus was basically training this customized GPT to draft reports, not necessarily the entire report, but section of reports, summarizing data, creating, like, for example, executive summaries that are more engaging and not so focused on hard data, increase the writing consistency and writing and editing and polishing the language, always thinking about that our audience at ITRR, despite the fact that we are based on robust and systematic science, our audience is not academic by itself. Like, it's a lot of people who are working on the applied setting. So we want to use and make sure that that language is speaking to that type of audience. All right. I know it's a lot. I know I'm throwing all of these things at you, but this is just a few ways we can use GenAI. We can harness data and like embrace the data that is out there, understand trends that are taking place in the tourism world, and use that for improving our capacity and increasing our reach as tourism and recreation industry partners here in Montana. And another thing that ITRR can do is help your team. Like, we've been developing a few workshops, customized workshops, for example, GenAI for tourist report writing, using GenAI for visitor feedback and sentiment. And we can help you develop a customized GPT for your team in an ethical and practical way regardless if you're a tourism office, if you're in the academia, or if you are running a business, we can talk to you and help you. Okay. I would like to open up the floor for discussions and questions and answers that I'm sure, hopefully, there will be a lot. And that's it. Thank you so much.
Oh, hello. This is great. I use AI a lot, but I'm really, really excited to see that all of your data is how we can actually utilize the AI tools that we have available to us to actually search the data. So when you rebuilt or kind of structured the data on your website, did you do that specifically to be able to be easily accessed for the AI platforms to be able to search easily?
So I can't really speak to the background of the website on itself. What I can tell you is that when I used the Perplexity one, it had a little bit of trouble navigating the dashboard, because the dashboard is so dynamic. It's for you to actually like navigate and like click on things that I don't think the Perplexity browser did a good job into more complex and more like detailed questions. But if it was a more general questions and things that are present on, for example, our own reports, not just on the dashboard, it did really well. So I don't know if I actually answered all the questions, because the technicality of how we built the website, I can't speak for it.
No,
Well,
that helps a lot. Oops, go ahead.
I was just going to add in, Racine, something else we're also learning is that some AI pulls more from paid media. And so like news channels and that will get pulled when I ask AI questions versus some of our actual reports or dashboard. And so we're still learning about that. And because the university or like our library doesn't do paid media, we're not always the first one that comes up in the search. So I think that's a evolving scenario.
Yeah, I run into that too. From my perspective, I've used Claude because it's better at that kind of data. It's much more powerful in terms of technical stuff. But I too have run into the source thing, and I tell it to, if I'm only wanting to search your guys' website, I say strictly use this website for data. And then I keep making sure you're only using that data, and then it will do that. But yeah, I just love this. That I just love being able to know that I can search this, because it can be tough to find the data that we want on your website. So this is great demonstration of how to do that.
Thanks, Racine. And I think our goal this upcoming year is to build a website off the university platform. And I think you've given us a lot of things to keep in mind is how AI can help support some of that. And we've talked about chatbots and different things. However, the good thing about us is a human still has to decipher the information and check its accuracy, and we're here to do that too. Kika, there are a few questions in the chat.
Oh, if we are using to analyze data, so we have used, I have used GenAI to analyze data, and I have not done the unstructured data from reviews that I mentioned in the beginning, like for example, using Google reviews or TripAdvisor. I played around, but not like for a specific research project. So like I played around like very limitedly, if that's a word, I'm sorry. Just because I didn't have like the time to actually dedicate for it, but I was curious enough. But I've used multiple tools to process both quantitative and qualitative data with different levels of success. And for qualitative data is tricky, especially if we're talking about interviews or long sources of data, like really long reports, for example, or focus groups, transcriptions. That's challenging, mostly because I have not had success reaching latent meanings. So basically those meanings that are not necessarily on words themselves. Like when it's just processing words and frequency, it's usually doing pretty well, like for at least in my experience. I don't know, if I address that. For quantitative, I've used menace.ai, and I'll type that because I know my accent is kind of tricky. I've used julius.ai, and I use like the free version of these two. So there's not as potent as my paid version of ChatGPT, although ChatGPT, there's just like mixed results, especially with multiple select questions. So we have been using, definitely, I have been using for analyzing data. At this point, as I was mentioning, because there's so much fabrication and hallucination, and because it's such a new tool for me and in academia in general, I think I have, like, for example, for quantitative, I run the whole analysis on SPSS, which is a specific software for social science. And I run it on ChatGPT just to crisscross information to eventually being able to trust it or not. All right, so the next one, describe more details how you built the customized GenAI tool for the ITRR staff. I think like the major thing is what need are we trying to address by developing a customized chatbot? And in that case was this improving the consistency among researchers and among reports and across years. So we're like right now, like around 10 people working at ITRR. So many different personalities and perspectives. And obviously we want to honor the PI's personalities and like basically, yeah, visions, but also promote like some sort of consistency across our reports. So we were trying to do that in a way that's reliable and also somewhat fast. So like to do that, I worked with ChatGPT on itself, like asking it. It's just like, okay, this is the need that I want to address. What do you suggest? So among a few suggestions, and I was basically exploring, like, should I develop an agent or should I develop a chatbot, like a customized chatbot? And by the like looking at pros and cons and thinking about trade-offs between these two, I went with the chatbot because it was simpler and it like I've never developed an agent yet or haven't yet. And so I was just like, okay, let's go with the simple one and see if this addresses the need that we have. And then we need to just try and keep iterating with the chatbot on itself that you're creating in order to make sure that it's doing what you are trying to reach and the way that you're trying to get to. So being very specific on the details of how you want it to behave, what you want to get. So like for example, like the University of Montana has a lot of requirements around accessibility. So I had to include that within our chatbot customization. And we also, like I also wanted to honor like the humanity on providing research content. So like when developing, I was always careful enough that say, hey, you as the chatbot should suggest ways to improve the report, the language, or the data analysis, but you will not do anything without the PI, like the principal investigator's consent, unless it's just like purely grammar. Then I said, just go ahead and fix it. But if it's to change content, if it's something that the PI missed, or just like generating ideas, it should act as a suggestion and not like a modification. Like it doesn't, it doesn't have a mind on its own. Like the PI is still accountable for the end product. And if you go like into the paid version of ChatGPT and you go to the left side, let me see if I can actually run this so I can better show you. Let me just, all right. Here, I'm gonna just quickly show you and share again my screen. So over here on the left side, and again, this is the paid version. So the free version might be a little bit different, but it has here chat GPTs. So this is the customized GPTs. So basically I have to, I'm Brazilian, so this is in Portuguese, is basically a peer review ChatGPT, like customized ChatGPT for journal writing. And this one is the one that I created. And if you go to explore, then you get to this page over here, and then you have this button create. So like you just click here and then you run through the whole process of how it can get like created and just iterate with it. And it's more intuitive than you think. Like, so basically this is the new ChatGPT. What would you like to make? And you start prompting here. So like, I would like to create a GPT for tourism and recreation students to learn about I don't know, something, quantitative methods in our field, something like this. And then you run it and like you can see, like it will probably start creating, you can see the preview here, and you can keep iterating over here, like just by saying, okay, what do you need to learn to know to improve your own efficiency as a customized GPT. So one of the things that I've learned in my interactions with AI is that if we run into something that it's not necessarily what we want, it's probably our own prompt. And we can ask them. It's just like, as I just did, what do you need to know to improve your own efficiency? So well, as you can see, like I didn't start with a very detailed prompt. I didn't tell them about my, I told them about my domain and my audience, but I didn't really specify the details. So basically this is what I need to do in order to actually create it and go through like every single one of these in details. And the more I provide examples, the more I iterate with it, the more I will be training it, the more we including sources of knowledge and materials that we're producing, and the more it will understand the way we want them to behave. So that's the key too. So just like patience on developing it, I guess. Thanks for these questions. They're great. Any other questions?
This is Racine again. I think one thing that I would just recommend is people just have fun with it. Just start off asking some questions and just have some fun in general, just play with it. And then you can start to provide some comfort. But again, it is such a great tool and it is really exciting. I love that you guys are doing this.
This is a great tip. And I think like I was very concerned about AI in general. I was just like, I have no idea how to interact with this, like, and what it's capable of, or how do I start? And I think just by approaching that in this way that Racine just described, just having fun and just be curious is a great way. And you can literally like just sit in front of the computer and type, I have never interacted with a chatbot before. How should I start? And the chatbot itself will tell you, like, will guide you through the things. And if you just start that like with like 5 minutes of interactions, or we're kind of looking, oh, let's check the weather together, or I'm going to visit my family for Christmas in whichever state, let's say Missouri, and like, what is the best way to get there, avoiding big major storms and major highways? Well, you're going to take a long time from Montana, but that's okay. Anyway, just thinking about these things and just playing with a topic that you feel safe enough, and always kind of just keep exploring, being curious, and make sure that you check the facts that it's providing you. Yeah, Megan called out, thank you, Megan, by the way, the attention that we are still developing the report writing chatbot, and there are multiple levels of interest, skill, and like level of comfort on navigating GenAI within the team. So it's something that we're implementing. But we also have like a human produced, like 100% human produced the template that we've been using and doing it. And I used that human produced document, which was on a Word document, to feed the chatbot, our customized GPT, with the template that we have been using and adopting at most of our reports. Well, if there are no more questions or comments, just a reminder, like we are offering extra services and webinars, possibility of ITRR working with you guys to develop customized GPT, or if you want to develop capacity within your team and people like within your industry, like to think about how to use Gen AI in general or for a specific goal, just talk to me or to Melissa, and we will be happy to like talk it with you guys. Thank you.